Welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. Today's special is Marc Martel from Queen Extravaganza.
Quiet on the set.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage.
Hello, welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. I'm Anna, with me is my co-host Dan, and today we have a very special guest. He had an awesome band called Down Here, which had 10 albums and won multiple awards. However, now he has a new album out called The Impersonator. In fact, you may know him from singing the Queen classic Somebody to Love, which generated more than 6 million views and earned him a spot on the 2012 Queen Extravaganza tour. We're super excited to welcome, joining us via Skype, is the one, the only Marc Martel!
Yeah! Welcome to the show.
I feel so important. Thank you.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. It's a nice, cozy day at home here in Nashville.
Excellent. Well, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get started?
How did I get started? Well, growing up in a musical family definitely was the instigator for me, like many musicians. Hearing Mom play Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata at night while we kids were falling asleep is one of my earliest musical memories.
Aww.
And I decided that I wanted to do something like that with my life, and that involved doing that sort of thing. And so I got interested in music immediately and started learning the piano, taking lessons, and learning songs by ear. Like I remember learning Richard Marx's Right Here Waiting when it was a big hit on the radio in the 80s, and swooning the little girl at school with it, and it kind of never relented. I was into sports and stuff like any other kid, but when I got to college, I let all that fall away and decided to continue on in music. But I never knew that music could be a viable thing for me. I grew up in a part of Canada where I didn't see anyone doing that. It wasn't a thing to really strive for.
Right.
So even when I got to college, I didn't focus on music, really. It was always my main interest, but I never really dreamed that it would become a career for me. And then these doors opened up for this band that I put together with my best friend, and we ended up moving down to Nashville as soon as we got done with college. And ever since, it's been full-time. So
Nice.
That's amazing.
Now, you've got this, this thing that you're doing with Queen Extravaganza. How does someone go about getting an impression of Freddie Mercury?
Well, you push out your front teeth real far and suck your thumb every night. I've been told for over a decade now, literally, I played in this band called Down Here, like you said. After every single show, I would try to keep track of how many people would come up to me and say, "Hey, you remind me of that singer from that band Queen. What's his name? Eddie something." Never failed. It was like at least 5 every night. People would come up, no matter how small the show is, no matter how much I was trying to sound like myself, whatever that is.
Right.
And so it just kind of became part of my life, It's just like, I guess I'm just going to be compared to this guy for the rest of my life. I get it, even whether or not I'm trying to sound like him or even singing one of his songs. So, that's how it started.
Be glad, because there are way worse comparison than like the greatest singer ever.
And that's what I love to say. Like, if people are going to compare you to any singer in the world, it may as well be Freddie Mercury.
Right.
Yeah. And recently, you did this video that you posted online. You called it Mercurati, where you did you did a duo between Pavarotti and Freddie Mercury, and your Pavarotti is also pretty spot on. And I was wondering, did you have classical training in voice?
No, it's kind of funny. Like, I know that, most people are saying, man, some people are even saying your Pavarotti is better than your Freddie Mercury. What? I guess to most people it's good enough, but I out of respect for those guys who put in their life in training to get that powerful operatic voice. I really don't think I'm there, obviously, but Thank you. I'm glad most people have really enjoyed that. And my parents listened to a little bit of opera. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was on VHS. It was called The Three Tenors.
Yes.
And it was, it was Pavarotti and Carreras and Domingo, and it was, a great once-in-a-lifetime concert that was very popular when it came out. It was released on video, and my parents were watching it, and I locked myself in the bathroom trying to imitate this, this low, powerful chest voice, and I was like, I bet if I developed that, I could be decent at it, but obviously I never went far with it. But I heard Nessun Dorma for the first time a few years ago, and I was like, oh man, that is one of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever heard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually recorded myself singing that just straight in an operatic voice, and it's actually on YouTube, and it's been up there for 5 or 6 years. But after I did that, I thought, man, what if I made like this Freddie Mercury Pavarotti thing, because they never got to sing together,
Right.
and that's something that I would pay to see. Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of amazing because Freddie actually got into opera late in his life, and it's kind of amazing to me that never came together because Pavarotti was so keen on performing with other artists, pop artists.
Wait, only later in life? Because he was amazing. I'm sorry, like his full voice, like that's one of the things that blows me away with Freddie Mercury is that I feel like he already has a type of operatic voice, meaning like with the power that he has, it's just like, and to keep the notes the way he does, and then to go even higher than that is just mind-blowing. I thought he had studied opera before. Okay, I'm totally wrong. Man, you're blowing my mind right here.
So, yeah, I mean, that's where the idea came from, and I don't know, I think simultaneously when I was thinking about that, I thought the half-beard thing would be a funny little weird addition to the thing. I was like, I don't mind being weird. It works.
I loved how like on one side you were completely Pavarotti, and then it turned to the other side, and it was Mercury.
Yeah, that's what he's just saying with the beard.
So funny. I loved that.
My wife Crystal was the one that filmed it, and she told me that when she moved around me to the other side on the first Freddie Mercury appearance, she actually, like, herself, she got chills.
Wow.
She didn't grow up with Queen or anything like that. The only exposure she has to is from my experience with the Queen Extravaganza, but she's like, when I moved to the other side of your face, I was like, whoa, what is going on? This is it's kind of amazing. So when you're like, person who knows you the best in the world is saying that, you're onto something pretty good. So.
Oh, yeah. Also, I was going to say, I was reading that was, you only did that in one take. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, I recorded myself doing it like 3 times, but it ended up being that the first one was the best one. So we went with that one.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break to listen to a clip from Paradise off Marc Martel's new album called Impersonator. We'll be right back. Now, I wanted to ask you, you've talked about some stuff that you've done. You talked about how you got started, but when was that exact moment that you decided that being a musician was exactly what you wanted to do? It wasn't going to be being a scientist who studies mercury. You wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had applied to this university in Canada, and I'd been accepted and everything, and I was going to go into biochemistry.
No
kidding.
And yeah, because, like I said, I just didn't see anything. I didn't know any professional musicians, and so I had no idea how I would even start to get into that. And so I thought I'd do the sensible thing and I was decent at math and sciences in high school. So I was like, well, maybe I need to do that. My grandfather's a chemist. But stuff fell through, and I ended up taking a year off instead of going to university. Mm-hmm. And then when I went up to the college I actually went to, it was people believing in me, really, that pushed me along. My best friend and I went to college together, and we were roommates, and we immediately, literally the first day we got there, we went into the auditorium and started playing on this amazing piano they had. And one of the faculty members in the music wing walked in. He was like, "Hey, are you involved in the music program here?" I'm like, "Well, we're taking the recording class because we're really interested in learning how to do recording and stuff like that."
Right.
So that was like the first step into like thinking, "Oh, maybe things are just going to happen." And I know that's such a weird thing to say because people work their whole lives and never, get where they want to be. And obviously it's still a lot of work for me. It's,
Right.
You can't just rest on your laurels in music. But for me, honestly, if I'm super honest with how I've gotten where I am today, it felt like things have just been thrown into my lap.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, but at the same time, it's coupled with a lot of hard work, and it doesn't. I guess it doesn't really feel like work when you love what you're doing. So it's that whole thing too.
Well,
That's
and
amazing.
you said that a lot of people really put a lot of hard work and effort into it. It doesn't mean that you didn't. It's just that it means you went a different route. There are a lot of people that go the school route to learn music and really study it hard. And hey, it really works for some people. But then there are other people that honestly learn better on their own, learn better from experiences. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there.
Absolutely. Just because you're not good at school doesn't mean anything, really.
Exactly.
Also, that was what one of my voice teachers said. He was like, do you think you have a nice voice? I'm like, I was born with the voice that I had. You know what I mean? Like, I can only do so much with it because, so I think you were born with an extraordinary voice, and then you've been, like, working on your voice, and, you're so enthusiastic and you love, loving the tenors and loving all those things. You impersonate, you're able to impersonate with your voice, which is amazing. I don't know how you do it. Crazy.
Thank you. It's funny because I didn't really grow up listening to cool music. I have so many friends who are, like when they ask me about my influences, I'm almost embarrassed to say, well, I was a big New Kids on the Block fan in the late 80s.
Right.
And, I listen to a lot of top 40 radio, but now I'm kind of like a rock artist. And I wish I'd been exposed to more classic rock growing up because that would just come a little easier to me. I love that music, but like there's this guy in the Queen Extravaganza, our drummer, Tyler Warren, and he's just like a music encyclopedia. He's like he's one of the most talented musicians I've ever met. He can do whatever he wants. He's a virtuoso on the drums, and if he gets off the drums, he can shred your face off with a guitar.
Wow.
He's got an amazing voice, and he plays the piano. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got so much to learn still.
Right. But isn't that a great feeling though, that there's so much more that you still have left to learn? Like I feel like if we could get to that point where we knew everything, it'd be boring because you wouldn't be doing anything new. Exactly.
And that's part of what I'm going through right now, especially with now being considered a new artist again as a solo artist, and it's a new challenge to come out with brand new music in a day when no one's really buying music anymore, and trying to get noticed, and so it kind of breathes life into you again. It's like, well, I guess I'm sort of starting over, and what do you do when you start over? You just kind of lay it all on the line and do what you can.
But at least you're doing it in a new media way, meaning like just the fact that you did like the Pavarotti and Mercury video, that's really, really interesting, which is share worthy. You know what I mean? Like I looked at that and I immediately shared it with my friends. That's how you like, and that's today's culture type of thing of sharing music is normally through a video medium. And there are way more sites dedicated to videos that, bring attention and that have something new that's, share worthy. And that's sort of how music spreads around these days,
Yeah, absolutely. And I have my great management team to thank for the timing of the Mercury video because we recorded that back in January when I was shaving off my holiday beard. And I couldn't wait to like post that thing up on YouTube because I thought it would, get a lot of attention and just couldn't wait to show it off to people. But my manager Chris immediately calls me. He's like, dude, don't release it yet. Let's time this with the release of the record. And
yes.
And I'm like, that's dude, that's what I pay you for. Thank you for saying that.
Exactly. No, because that's when people are going to be, oh my God, I want more. And then they go and find you.
And that's exactly what I did, is I saw that video and I was blown away by it and said, you know what? I got to find out who this guy is. And I went and looked you up. I looked on YouTube, found the videos of Queen Extravaganza, and then saw you had an album out. And I was like, whoa, let's check that out. You know, it's true. You know, if you plan everything together, it's just kind of like a spiraling motion. Like one thing leads to another, one and leads to another, leads to another.
Dan, you have played perfectly into our little scheme. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And by the way, don't be embarrassed by what you listen to, your influences, because I have to say, even for me, and I've gotten really recently into rock, and that's what our band is all about. And I was feeling so bad because I'm like, I don't really have, like, I just recently started listening to all this classic rock, and my thing growing up was like Spice Girls and, you know, Celine Dion and Whitney Houston, all these like adult contemporary, like amazing artists. But then I'm at rock and they would be asking me like, oh, who's your rock person? I'm like, Freddie Mercury? Like I wouldn't know. Like if somebody would ask me a little bit earlier, it takes some studying up on. I feel like I'm learning history, like music history for the first time.
I was for one of our songs, I was inspired by the song My Sharona. I don't even like that song, but I was inspired by it. But
it is inspirational. The guy who actually is a friend, there's a friend of mine here in town who is an audio engineer, recording engineer, done a bunch of records with him, and he's actually the guy that sent me the link to the initial Queen Extravaganza contest.
Yeah.
When Roger Taylor initially put out the word saying, hey, you know, quit your day job and become a rock star and all this stuff. And so this friend of mine, Todd, sent me that link the day that it came out, and he's like, and all it said in the subject line was a must. And so I clicked on the link and I went to the website and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can not do this. I have to try out for this to see what happens. Well, anyway, this guy Todd is, you know, huge, like in the industry here in Nashville. He's been doing it all his life, and you know, he's like one of those typical guys that just knows everything but the ins and outs of the recording industry. He knows every producer's name and everything. And every time I get into a conversation with him, he starts talking about, you know, this and that great producer that produced the Rolling Stones and Queen and all this stuff that I should probably know. I have to go, hey, hold on, Todd, I got to stop you right there. Those three names you just mentioned, I have no idea who they are. You just kind of go, oh, Mark, you have so much to learn. So, you know, we all get to where we get on our own way somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually, you kind of started off what I was going to ask next. Is I was reading that you got handpicked by Brian May and Roger Taylor to be the singer of Queen Extravaganza. I mean, how was that experience? How did you get it? You know, and I mean, you kind of said it was a contest. You know, I mean, how did that whole thing go about?
Yeah. Well, Roger Taylor had this idea to put together his own tribute band to his own band. You know,
must be nice.
Kind of an interesting idea. Yeah, exactly.
Dan, let's do Anna and the Bells tribute band.
Yeah, before we even get out there.
Yes, before we even get out there. Just.
And he thought, well, I don't want to do the typical TV show, but we do have this amazing tool called the Internet, and so let's see how many people we can get to try out for this thing, just submitting their videos to YouTube.
Right.
And so there was 3 rounds of auditions, and if you got to the 3rd round, you got to fly out to Los Angeles and perform for Roger in person at the Foo Fighters studio.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so there was like 26, I believe, finalists for the entire band. There were singers, bass players, drummers, keyboardists, and you know, everything. And so that's when I first met Roger in person. And you know, the thing is, with my video having gone viral immediately, it got, you know, it's up to like 9 million views or something now. But it caused quite a stir. And when I got there, it was really strange because a few people there were like it was the first time I felt like sort of a celebrity, and it was kind of weird. But at the same time, I was like still with the rest of them going, hey, Roger Taylor's here, you know. So it was cool, and he's such a great guy. Every time we hang out with him, he's super easygoing, and but anyway, they whittled it down to like 5 people that day, and that's close to what the band is still to this day 2 years later. So it was a fun experience. It was sort of like a homegrown version of American Idol.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was probably a little more, intimate because, instead of like how with American Idol, you're performing for judges, you're performing for a whole crowd. This is you're performing for, Roger Taylor.
Yeah.
That's the audience.
It was such a weird feeling, just having, and I had actually been performing Somebody to Love with my old band. We'd been performing it for a few months already just because of my video going viral. And we thought, hey, let's throw this into our set. We don't do covers. We just do our own music, but this seems like a good fit for us. So we've been playing the song for a while. So I'd sort of gotten used to performing Queen's material a little bit. But I got in front of Roger Taylor and I was like, I am performing someone else's music in front of the person that was a part of writing it. And it was such a weird feeling for me.
Right.
And it still is to this day whenever Roger walks in or is at one of our concerts. Like the last time he was at our concert was in London a few weeks ago. And, he shows up and then after the show he'll come up and tell us, great job everyone. And his favorite work is, his favorite word for me is, Mark, that was just uncanny, and whenever you're on the stage, it feels like Freddie's in the room, and I just love it. And so it's just so cool. I can't believe, I want to hashtag everything he says. Is this real life?
I wanted to ask you, or I wanted to say though, because you brought up Someone to Love. I absolutely love when it goes into the guitar solo, how you sing, "This is the guitar solo."
Yeah. And my motivation for doing that was to kind of silence the people online who inevitably are going to be saying, "Oh, he's lip syncing."
Right.
So I thought I'd throw in my own little taste there, and yeah, and every still to this day, every time we perform that song, I have to restrain myself from saying, "This is a guitar solo." Yeah.
That always reminds me of the guitar. I always wonder if the person who just accidentally saw the lyric and said guitar and thought that was a line.
Are you talking about The Darkness?
Yes.
Oh, right. I believe in a thing called Love.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he says guitar, and I'm like, was that just like he thought that was one of the words and just did that?
That's so funny. That he could be like reading the lyric sheet as he's recording, and he just sees in parentheses guitar.
Exactly.
Meaning that's the guitar part, and he just goes, "Oh, hey, guitar!"
May as well. It's on the sheet.
Exactly.
Sound like Ron Burgundy reading everything that's on the teleprompter.
Yes.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Damn it! Who put a question mark? Oh, that's good. But I wanted to ask you, so far with everything that you've done to this point, what has been the biggest challenge that you've had to face?
I think that's a great question. Probably the biggest challenge is, which is basically the theme of a lot of my solo album, is just maintaining my identity as simultaneously giving a nod to Freddie Mercury, since that's not something I'll ever be able to really separate myself from. But, like I said before, it's such a huge compliment anytime people compare me to him. But, being on stage and performing someone else's music, it's not something that I ever dreamed that I would be doing. I'm a songwriter, obviously, and feel like I have a lot to offer there. But every night, the good thing is, and the thing that was kind of a deciding factor in me joining the Queen Extravaganza, was that Roger Taylor really didn't want us to be impersonators. He just wanted to get up there, play the music as best that we could, and the way that Queen want their music to be heard, and not try to be someone else. And so, but at the same time, Freddie Mercury left such a huge emptiness in the world of rock and roll for the last 20 years, and people still feel that. They miss him, and he's, such a huge person in rock and roll that people long to have that back. And when they can sort of get a glimpse of it in my performance, you kind of want to give a little bit of what people want from you on stage as an artist, because you're not up there just for yourself. And a lot of artists will say, hey, we don't do this for the crowd, for the fans. We do this because we're artists and we love music and we're expressing ourselves. And that's true to an extent. But at the same time, if you're not there giving something to your audience, you're wasting your time. So it's a constant struggle for me every night to maintain my identity, to let people know, hey, this is me singing someone else's song, but at the same time, I want to give you a little bit of what you're craving. So that's the fine line that I walk every night with the extravaganza, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges I have.
But you know what, though? That's a great thing, though, that he would say that, that he doesn't want you to impersonate Freddie. He doesn't want you guys to try to sound identical to them, because that kind of gives you that opportunity to just give it your own flavor, give it your own taste, make it exactly what it is. It's a tribute band. It's not a copy band. It's just a tribute. Exactly. So it's like what Jack Black said. It's just a tribute, But at the same time, though, that's really cool. It opens up so many doors. You can try new things. Maybe there's something that Freddie didn't do that maybe you really like doing, and you could try that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the great thing is that Freddie Mercury, in his performances, he was notorious for changing melodies and being creative in the moment. And so people sort of expect that when you're singing Queen stuff, that you're not going to stick to the album version all the time. So that's a lot of fun to play with.
By the way, kudos to that when you were doing the Mercury for the Pavarotti Mercury thing.
Mercury?
Yes, I loved how you went above like he normally does, because he normally he never stays in one tonality. He always goes a little bit above, and that makes it the Mercury way, You're like, there's Mercury.
See, I love that in the the instrumental break, he did exactly what I knew Freddie Mercury would have done, where he just did the la da 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 da.
Yes,
exactly. I was sitting there going, dude, yes, that's exactly what he would have done.
Yeah, and that was also a way to not be standing in front of the camera with nothing to do.
Well, speaking of challenges, we actually have a new challenge for you today, because we are up to our segment, the Question of the Month. So in this segment, we'll ask our interviewees a new question every month, and they have to think of the funniest answer that they can come up with. To our listeners, write in your questions on our Facebook at facebook.com/Entertainment Drive-Thru and our Twitter at eDrive-Thru, and we just might use it as the question of the month. Now, Mark, are you ready?
I am ready.
Excellent. So question is, what is one of the funniest gifts that you've either given or received?
Golden toilet.
Golden toilet.
Ooh.
Yes.
Now, did you get that or did you give that?
That was a gift given to my band.
Oh.
Ooh. Is that a Freddie Mercury way? Is it a Queen way? Does the Queen have golden toilets?
That's when I walk out onto the stage while we're playing God Save the Queen. I hold it aloft above my head. No, it was, we did this concert quite a few years ago, and this group of kids showed up at the concert, and they were like, we think you deserve this because you're so badass and you did such a great job, and here's our golden toilet.
Okay.
We kind of scratched our heads and we're like, well, I don't know if we have room in the trailer for that thing.
That would be an awesome trailer toilet. Come on, gold. That spruces it up a notch.
That's something you don't hear every day, though. It's like, you guys did so good. Let me buy you a beer. Or you guys did really good. Here's some cookies. You guys did really great. Here's a toilet.
It's a version of a golden egg. It's not a golden egg, it's a golden toilet.
Well, it's like everyone always talks about, I wish I could give you everything in the world, Anna, but, I would like a golden toilet. Well, he actually got one.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want a golden toilet? You tell me that.
It would be great, though, in the summertime, because it's gold, it would probably get cold. So you would it'd be so nice. It's really hot outside. You're sweating a lot, and then you sit down and you're like, oh, that's lovely.
and folks, that's our potty humor segment.
Literally potty humor.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh my goodness. Well, getting back to the interview, but that was a fantastic answer. I'm actually really jealous that you got that and I didn't. But now I wanted to move on here, and I wanted to ask you, we've kind of been talking about all the projects that you've worked on, how you got going and everything. But let's talk about advice for a second. You know, I mean, what's some of the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Man, it's funny. You're making me jog my memory. I just listened 2 nights ago to this interview that Howard Stern did with Neil Young.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of fascinating to listen to him, kind of in a rare interview. And well, even to this day, he just doesn't really care what people think of him, and that's, I think, the hardest thing for artists to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to still be true to his art, and of course, there's all the complications of, well, I got to make money at this, I got to put food on the table, and so I have to do something that is mainstream and that a certain amount of people can relate to. And yeah, there's all that, but at the same time, if you're not being true to yourself, then what's it all worth? And so that's what I attempted to accomplish on this record, Impersonator. Even though with the irony is probably not lost on you in the title, but it's just the most important thing. It's people have expectations of artists, but an artist can't be truly an artist if they're pandering too much to other people. And so that's my part of my advice. There's so much advice you can give, but
right.
If I needed to boil it down to that, I mean, it's the old adage, it's nothing new, but being yourself is still the main thing, I think.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's a really good point, though, about caring what people think, because, the truth is, and it really came out tremendously with the internet, and everyone getting that wonderful, lovely, anonymous opinion.
Yeah.
But, the thing is that, and I've seen posts so many times, and they're all titled, Why You Will Never Make It. And it's always the same thing. You care too much about what people think. And it's really true because, with the internet, it proved to us you're never going to make everyone like you. You're never going to, because people are always going to if you're making more money than someone, they're going to want to hate you. No matter what you do, no matter how good you are, they're going to want to find some reason why you're not good. And so because of that, if you're focused entirely on trying to please them, it's not going to happen. So you might as well just stick to your roots, stick to your guns, and say, you know what? I'm doing this because I think this is good. I know a lot of people will like it, and that makes me happy,
I also feel that today we're sort of, the first thing that pops into our head is the negative. We may be watching something that's spectacular and then make one error, and that's the thing that we remember most. It's horrible, but it's just a fact. And I notice it even with the media and all this stuff. They always focus on the negative. I'm like, you could have an hour of positive thing, and then one mistake, and that would be the one that would be pointing out.
Well, but it's also
absolutely.
It's like what Kyle C said when he came on our show, is he was talking about the fact that, if someone were to go up to you on the street, you were standing on the street and someone came up to you and said they were going to hand you $1 million for free, the first thing that you would think of is, what's the catch? Mm-hmm. You instantly try to think of something bad, negative about it, instead of, oh my goodness, someone wants to give me money.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's great advice, though, to people just getting started as well, because, again, if you're just getting started out there, you really want this to be what you want to do, then, stay true to yourself. Do it because you want to do it, and don't try to please everyone, because it's just not going to happen.
Right.
But and
people,
a lot of people
deep down anyway are looking for originals anyway, and if you're trying to pander to something that's prefab or formulaic, then you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're just going to be much happier in the end, I think, if you do what you feel like you're called to be, and the uniqueness that makes you you, and that might be something that harkens back to something else. Like for me, it's the Freddie Mercury thing, but it's still me, to an extent, and I have a weird sense of humor sometimes that my wife has to help me filter out a little bit, because it's a little too weird for people.
Wait. You're from Canada. Maybe it's a thing, because I'm from Europe, and sometimes I say things and they're like, no, you can't say that here. I'm like, damn it.
But at the same time, what if I did just say every weird thing that came to mind? Maybe it would alienate a lot of people, but part of me just doesn't really care.
Right.
But I guess I do a little bit, because my wife cares.
Well, it'd make you be just being yourself,
Yeah, and she sees, the good in me, and she knows how do I say this? She wants to promote me in just the best light possible,
right.
And she's such an encouragement in my career, and almost everything she says is right. Even if I don't agree with her in the moment, I'll look back and say, "Oh yeah, honey, you were right about that." Even though she's not even a musician, and she has opinions about songs that I'm writing, and she'll say, "Well, that part makes me feel a certain way." I'm like, "Wow, you don't have the musical vocabulary to express what you're saying." But after I really think about it, I'm like, you're right. And so it's good to listen to the voices in your life that have your best interests in mind.
Well, and you know what, though?
That's another piece of advice.
I think that's good, though, that she isn't a musician because, if you always get opinions from musicians, they're always going to think musical. They're always going to think theory. They're always going to think, how things, quote unquote, should be. But, the truth is when you talk to someone that doesn't know all the terms, doesn't know all the techniques and all that, they just give you how it sounds. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it's really refreshing as musicians every once in a while to have someone just go, you know what, I really like this part because it makes me feel happy. Instead of, I really like this part because that Lydian tonality that you did on that, fourth is just wonderful.
There you go. And that's just the beautiful tension of being an artist is that, yes, you have to be yourself, but at the same time, I think the other equally good advice to give is that to surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth.
Exactly.
And friends who aren't going to just be yes people and tell you, maybe have the guts to even say, maybe you should be a chemist. Maybe you need the biochemistry and not so much the music in your life. Mm-hmm. And those things are hard to say, but that's only good for you in the long run.
Exactly.
And did you feel that I was just wondering this because you moved from Canada to Nashville. Did you feel Nashville is the place to be when it comes to music? Did you feel the change of being able to be a full-time musician because you moved to Nashville?
Well, what happened was straight out of college, my old band got signed to a record label here. Mm-hmm. And that is definitely what instigated the move down here. We would have never dreamed of moving here without a record deal because, it's just kind of financial suicide to move across the border to a country where you're not even allowed to work and try to make a living. That's just a recipe for getting deported. So, but, that was the instigator. But, 14 years later, this is my favorite place I've ever lived, and I don't have any desire to move anywhere else. And, of course, there's New York and L.A., and they all have their own vibe and everything, but for me, Nashville is just the perfect city.
Aww. That's good. Well, I wanted to move on real quick. I wanted to ask you, what are some resources that you really like? Maybe some internet sites, some books that you've read, maybe some movies. What are things that really inspired you that you think every musician should at least know about?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I'm really bad with actually even listening to music on my own time. Mm-hmm. That's actually an area where I actually need to do better. I hardly ever listen to other music, and I know that's horrible, and I know that I need to be doing that. Actually, last night I spent about an hour just kind of on this rabbit trail of listening to music previews on iTunes last night, a couple of new albums that just came out, and I was just realizing while I was sitting there actually listening to music going, I feel like I haven't done this for like a year. Actually just sit down and listen and appreciate music. Also, listening to other artists and interviews is something that really pushes me along. Like I mentioned that Neil Young interview, and I remember hearing Tom York, a great interview with him last year that really inspired a few things for me. And listening to other art, you got to expose yourself to other art because can't really. Creating art in a vacuum, I won't say it's impossible, but it's not the best thing for me anyway. So I like to hear what other artists are doing and their creativity. And I even learned how to sing from listening to other artists. So I know that being surrounded by other great artists is just only going to serve me well.
Right, exactly. And that is the best way to learn. If you think about it, and I went through school. I went through two schools. One I was learning opera, one I was learning guitar. And the truth is, I learned the most hands-on when I was around people doing it, when I was listening to how other people were doing it, the mistakes they made, what I wanted to change about it. That's the way you get better. Because the teaching, that's just for theory and technique, but actually building up your style, your specific sound, that you learn from listening to others.
Yeah, and you build on other people's stuff. And I'm also really motivated by, I guess, competition.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call myself the most competitive person. Like, I enjoy playing sports, but I don't care if I win or lose.
Right.
I mean, I'm a good loser at board games and stuff like that. I don't get upset over that stuff. But when I see someone, a musician, doing something that I would have never thought of,
Right.
I'm like, wow, there's limits to what I'm doing, and I need to break beyond those walls and push myself even a little further than I have. And that's the fun thing with music, man. You've never explored the whole thing, and there's always so much more you can do.
Well, and that's kind of a cool concept, is not competing with others, but competing with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, unfortunately, we are down to the end of the interview. But before we go here, where are some places that our listeners can find out more information about you and the things that you do?
Well, the easiest thing to do is just Google my name, Marc Martel, and that's Marc with a C. I've got a website. I've got Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. And come on out, say hi, like my stuff.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Marc, for being on the show. It's really been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Loved it. You guys are great. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. And for more information on Marc Martel, Queen Extravaganza, and the podcast, go to entertainmentdrivethru.com and subscribe on iTunes. Like and follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter and Instagram @DriveThru.
Hey, this is Marc Martel of the Queen Extravaganza, and you've been listening to Entertainment Drive-Thru.